Are you thinking about making a career change at 30 or even 40 and wondering, am I too old to go to flight school and become a pilot? Well, that's exactly what I'm talking about in this video. Coming up.
963 heavy, sliding 190, maintain 10,000, runway 18 left, clear for takeoff.
Hey crew, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name's Kelsey. I'm a 747 pilot. My channel, 74 Gear, is all about aviation. So whether you're a pilot or just an aviation enthusiast, consider subscribing. Today I'm talking about making a career change into aviation. One of the most common questions that I get asked in the comment section is, am I too old to go to flight school? I can't really answer that question for each individual person. So in this video, I'm addressing several things to consider when you're thinking about making a career change and getting into aviation. Let's get into it. So the first thing I want to tell you is I can't answer the question for you, but what I'm going to do is bring up several points to consider when you're considering making that move. The first thing to do is take the number 62, subtract your age, and come up with that number. So for example, if you're 40, you would take 62 minus 40, 22.
You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
Now the reason that I use 62 instead of 65, which is the age that you're allowed to fly to, is because I want to allocate 3 years for you to go to flight school, build your flight time, and get your first job at the regionals. So it gives you 3 years, which is plenty of time, especially if you're dedicated and really working at this hard. So once you have that number, 62 minus 40 as an example, 22, that gives you 22 years to work at the airlines. The reason that's important is to figure out what's your return on investment gonna be. If you're gonna only have 3 years or 4 years to do the job, well then the return on investment's not gonna be very good. But if you're 40, as an example, you have basically 22 years to work at the airlines. That's a decision you're gonna have to make. Is that enough time for you to really live out your dream and do what you want to do? I don't know. So next is return on investment. Obviously it's going to cost quite a bit of money to go to flight school. It's going to vary depending on where you go in the world and the type of program that you do. That amount of time that you investing into going through flight school, obviously you're going to have no income during that time, and once you get your first job, it's not going to pay a lot. That return on investment is the other thing to consider. I made a video a while back that talked about the pilot salary and things to consider, so I'll link that up here and you can watch that video. I'll put it in the description as well. So after this, if you want to see kind of what the average salaries are around the world, you can have a pretty good idea about that. The next thing that I get asked a lot from people that are wondering if they're too old to make this career change is, what kind of job opportunities am I going to have? Is it going to be hard for me to get a job? Now, if you've watched the video that I did on the pilot shortage, which I'll also put in the description, it talks about the overall worldwide shortage that's occurring right now for pilots. Does that mean you're immediately going to be able to get a job when you come out of flight school? Maybe not. But with a little bit of flight time, especially in the US, there are a lot of opportunities out there. And if you watch that pilot shortage video, you'll see kind of overall around the entire world what's happening and the demand for pilots that's coming up. So can you get a job? With some flight experience, you can pretty much get a job anywhere. And the last thing to consider is, what are your friends and family going to think if you quit your job and make a big investment to change your careers and get into aviation? Well, I can't really answer that question for you, but that's definitely something you need to consider. You obviously, if you have children or you have people that are dependent upon you, that's something you definitely have to consider when you're looking at this, because the initial part of getting into aviation is very expensive and the income at the beginning is very low. I have two quick stories for you of older guys that I worked with throughout my career in aviation. The first one is a guy I'm still friends with to this day. When I went to the regionals, he and I were in ground school together. He turned 50 in ground school at the regionals. He had done a different career in real estate prior to this. He had always wanted to be a pilot, and we went through together, and to this day we're good friends. There's an example of an older guy. Now, did he get teased a little bit in class? Yeah. Did I do the teasing? Maybe. But we're still good friends, and if you know me and we're friends and I'm not teasing you, well then that's not good.
Blue, you sure you're okay with this?
Just ring the bell, you pansy.
The second guy was one of my very first jobs I had. I think he was 56 or 57, and he had about 400 or 500 hours when he got a job flying the very small charter aircraft that we were flying up in the Northeast. So that guy was 56 and just getting started in his career. It's different for everybody, but those are two examples of some older guys that really wanted to be pilots, and they had a prior career. I think that guy worked in IT, and he had always wanted to be an airline pilot, and he was able to do that. He later went to the regionals, and I never really kept touch with him because I didn't know him that well. But those are two older guys that I met and saw really pursue their dreams of aviation. The question really is, are you going to regret if you don't get into aviation? If that's something you always really wanted to do when you are older, are you going to regret not making that decision? There's a really famous quote from Mark Twain. I really like it. I'll put it up here. You obviously have to make some decisions as you're going through to really analyze it, because it's not for everybody. But if it's something you really want to do, then you should do it. All right, the last thing I want to leave you with is, a lot of times I've heard guys say, man, I wish I'd started 10 or 15 years earlier, or I wish I'd done this when I was 20. The last 12 or maybe 15 years of aviation really sucked for pilots. There was an overabundance of pilots. There was definitely a shortage of jobs. You had to get a lot more hours to get into a cool plane. So things really in the last 2 to 3 years have really started to change in the favor for pilots. Don't feel like you missed out on too much. All right, crew, that's everything I have for helping you make your decision if this is a career change that you want to make. In the comment section below, let me know what you think the oldest someone should be when they start their career in aviation. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.